You urged protesters in Iran earlier this week to keep fighting in the streets and said that help was on the way. Is help still on the way, or has your bar...
Fox News confirming at least one aircraft carrier is en route to the Middle East, with other military assets from air, land, and sea expected to begin flowing into the region in the coming days and weeks.
Axios is reporting that the director of Israel's spy agency, Mossad, flew in today to the U.S. for talks with White House envoy Steve Witkoff about Iran.
The idea we're dealing with the most vicious regime on the planet. If you don't understand this is the biggest moment for change since the fall of the Berlin Wall, you're missing a lot. This is a religious war.
Welcome to Boney's View. My name is Chisom, and this is Chisom's Insight, Episode 5. Here, you get no fluff, no spin, just the facts. Or, as a friend likes to say, this is straight knowledge served hot. Today's episode is titled, Trump Paused the Strike, but the Military Clock is Still Ticking. If you haven't seen Episode 4, where we break down the Iranian protests, be sure to do that after this, of course. Let's get started. Signs are emerging that U.S. Navy and Air Force assets may be pushing toward the Middle East, and what that could mean if President Trump chooses to strike Iran.
Fox News confirming at least one aircraft carrier is en route to the Middle East, with other military assets from air, land, and sea expected to begin flowing into the region in the coming days and weeks. The White House still leaving the door open, though, for a potential strike.
The president and his team have communicated to the Iranian regime that if the killing continues, there will be grave consequences. The president and his team are closely monitoring this situation, and all options remain on the table for the president. Only President Trump knows what he's going to do, and a very, very small team of advisors are read into his thinking on that.
Open source tracking is starting to show the usual pre-crisis pattern. Carrier strike group movement, increased cargo flights, and indications that U.S. Air Force assets may be heading into the region. And we've seen this movie before. When a crisis is brewing, you see logistics first, then fighters, then the rest of the package.
So as thousands of anti-government protesters are feared dead in Iran, the U.S. is sending military assets, including an aircraft carrier, the USS Abraham Lincoln, to the Middle East as President Trump weighs whether or not to carry out a strike. Aisha Hasni joins us from the White House with more. Aisha.
Hey, good morning to you, Brian. Well, you can certainly see here that all the chess pieces are moving around the globe, and we are learning from military sources that the U.S. is sending at least one aircraft carrier to that region right now. We don't know yet if it's going to be the USS Abraham Lincoln that's currently in the South China Sea, or if it's one of the two carriers that just left Norfolk or San Diego earlier this week.
Now, here's the key context. President Trump has reportedly called off some kind of operation, at least for now, while the administration signals it prefers diplomacy in this moment. And I want you to hear this clearly: the lack of adequate equipment in the region for both effective offensive operations and especially defensive ones likely impacted his decision to hold off. That line matters because it's not just about striking Iran, it's also about countering the retaliation.
You urged protesters in Iran earlier this week to keep fighting in the streets and said that help was on the way. Is help still on the way, or has your bar
Well, we're going to see. As you know, Iran canceled the hanging of over 800 people. They were going to hang over 800 people yesterday, and I greatly respect the fact that they canceled that.
Mr. President,
even if military action is off the table today, Trump hasn't ruled it out tomorrow. If he goes kinetic, the options range from surgical strikes on Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps assets and Basij units, to air defense suppression, to standoff strikes to reduce risk in future operations, to the most extreme scenario, decapitation targeting senior regime leadership. The U.S. also has the military capability to strike Iranian infrastructure, including potential targets like gas pipelines, using long-range missiles or airstrikes, but such actions are high stakes, risking severe Iranian retaliation against U.S. forces, partners, and global oil markets, especially via the Strait of Hormuz. While the U.S. military maintains readiness for such operations, striking energy infrastructure carries significant geopolitical and economic risks, including disrupting global oil supplies.
Axios is reporting that the director of Israel's spy agency, Mossad, flew in today to the U.S. for talks with White House envoy Steve Witkoff about Iran, with Senator Lindsey Graham announcing that he is headed to Israel as he calls on the president to take action.
People are being slaughtered in the streets. If that's not a distraction, that's a moment where we need to act. The idea we're dealing with the most vicious regime on the planet, if you don't understand this is the biggest moment for change since the fall of the Berlin Wall, you're missing a lot. This is a religious war.
Tyler Rogaway, editor-in-chief at The War Zone, put it bluntly. I'll quote the core line. There are not enough assets in the Middle East to execute a sustained campaign. Now, let me summarize his full point and don't miss the details. Yes, the U.S. has limited tactical air power in the region that can hit targets. But to make a real dent, you need a fully packaged force, not just shooters, but the entire support web and contingencies. He notes Tomahawk land attack missile capacity is limited in theater, essentially a small number of destroyers and maybe a submarine. Bombers can help, but the numbers are still constrained. B-52s and B-1s carrying Chisoms, B-2s potentially used against hardened targets, even decapitation-type missions, but those sorties would be low volume. And here's the big issue, the aftershock. Rogaway warns there isn't enough in place to robustly handle the aftermath massive barrages of Iranian short-range ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, and drones. That's why the delay logic matters. Moving the defensive package takes time, more fighters, more ground-based air defenses, more naval assets, and he argues we haven't seen the movement that screams, sustained campaign is imminent. Bottom line, without that posture, any strike would likely be limited, and it could leave Iran able to respond massively while the U.S. and allies aren't ideally prepared. That's not politics, that's operational reality. And it's not just analysts saying it. A former high-ranking U.S. military official essentially agreed an operation against Iran would be massive. You'd have to get forces there, stage them, employ them, sustain them, and be prepared to do it for a long time. Now on the Navy side, the reported movement of the Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group would raise U.S. striking power when it arrives. And this part matters for capability. The Carrier Air Wing includes aircraft like F-35C, F-A-18E, F-Super Hornets, EA-18G Growlers, E-2D Hawkeyes, plus support aircraft. And its escorts bring a large number of missile tubes that matter both for strike and defense in the event of retaliation. We're also seeing indications of broader movement, cargo, aircraft activity, possible European jets repositioning, and the usual quiet signaling that happens before a major decision. So, here's the clean takeaway. Asset movement is the message. It signals preparation, leverage, and optionality. A U.S. strike isn't just about hitting targets, it's about being prepared for what comes after. And that's likely why Trump paused. Not enough forces in place for offense, and especially defense. If action comes, it's either surgical and limited, or it becomes something far bigger, because Iran's retaliation capability isn't theoretical. This is Chisom's Insight, and as we promised, we delivered with no fluff, no spin, just the facts. If you want episode 6, you know what to do. Like, subscribe, and drop your take in the comments. Peace!